What's poppin', mi gente? Your boy is back with another video. Now I'm going to attempt to be concise in this video, but there's a lot I have to cover, so if it drags on a little bit, I apologize in advance. I wanted to make this video because I've said it since day one, seeing is believing, and I believe in receipts when I have people that are donating funds to my project. Speaking of donations, unfortunately the donations went down again this month, so I'm going to reiterate what I said last month. If you're already a Patreon supporter, I appreciate you. If you can go up to a higher tier, please do. If you can't afford that, put up links to this page, to my YouTube videos, everywhere. We're talking on YouTube, we're talking on Discord. If you still post on forums, do it there. If you post on social media, Instagram, Facebook, all that, do it. Hiding this project because some of you are scared of the almighty C&D is not going to help it. All it's going to do is ensure its failure. So expose it, go to a higher tier, whatever you could do. If you're not a Patreon supporter, you've got no excuse. Join right now. You can do it for as little as $5 a month. If even 100 of you did that, it would be a tremendous difference in the project, and you would see twice as much progress immediately afterwards. Money talks, guys. I have to pay people. If I want something as simple as someone to look at my code and tell me what's wrong, I've got to pay somebody for their time. If I want sprite work, I got to pay somebody. If I need sound engineers, I got to pay somebody. This all costs money, guys, and I'm basically working here for not even $1 an hour, so please, do what you can. Become a patron right now. Let's make this project a reality. Alright, so that's enough panhandling. So what have I been working on for the last 3 months? In short, setting up assembly definition files, cleaning up code, and separating my code so it wasn't so heavily interconnected. I was running into a real problem when it came to setting up new player classes, and that is it's time to put in the code for the bat form and the wolf form for Alucard. Now these were already done some time ago in the original project, but I have to re-import and edit that code and update it to work with the new code now, which the new code is ridiculously way better than that old junky code was. And it shows because I've gotten very few bug reports on all of the releases I put out there, and just about every bug I've seen I've been able to squash within a couple of minutes. But nonetheless, I'm still a self-taught programmer, and that is to say that compared to a professional, my code is, how can I put this? Shit. It was very heavily interconnected. And in order to set up assembly definition files, which an assembly definition file is basically a grouping of code that compiles together. So what that means is if you have code A that's composed of scripts 1, 2, 3, and code area B that's comprised of scripts 4, 5, and 6, when you make changes to the code to scripts 1, 2, and 3 in assembly A, you don't have to worry about recompiling scripts 4, 5, and 6 in assembly B. And that may not sound like a big deal to anybody who's not a programmer, but for anybody who is, they already know where this is going. The bottom line is, compile time has a habit of becoming quite large as a project gets big. This is an issue that if anybody looks on the Unity forums, you can quickly see for yourself a number of complaints from people going, yeah, my code's taking an hour, 2 hours, 35 minutes, tremendous amounts of time just sitting there waiting for the code to compile so they can run it and test it. Now that's not going to work. I can easily have code compile 50 times in a 4-hour session. Could you imagine if I had to sit here even waiting 2 minutes each time? That's 100 minutes. That's almost 2 hours of just sitting here staring at a screen. Out of my 4-hour session, that'd be half my time. That's not going to work. So before that became my reality, I started looking into setting up those assembly definition files. In order to set them up, you have to separate out your code so it's not heavily interdependent on one another. Because the way Unity does things by default, it all goes into one assembly. That doesn't work, and that's why people end up with huge compile times. Now, unfortunately for me, assembly definition files didn't exist when I started on the project. So this is something I knew I was going to have to do for a while, and just recently started being concerned with because I noticed my compile times had gone from being about 10-15 seconds to 25-30 seconds, sometimes 40 seconds. The thing with compile times is the increase in time is exponential. So you're not going to see a time go up from 20 seconds to 21 seconds to 22 seconds. No, it's going to shoot up from 20 seconds to 30 seconds, then 30 seconds to 45 seconds, 45 seconds to a minute and 5 seconds, and so on and so forth. And anybody who knows me knows that I am very proactive, not reactive, when it comes to doing things in life. And what I mean by that is I wasn't going to sit around and wait until the compile time was just unmanageable and I was sitting here wasting hours a day staring at a screen. No. I decided to jump on it and start looking for solutions to the problem, which again turned out to be those assembly definition files. So what I did was I started breaking apart my code. I started with the basic things in my game system and worked my way upward. Now, for those of you who've been looking at the screen, you might have noticed you've been staring at the same screen now with two lists of things. If you look at the top, the left side is Demo 019. That's an old version of the project. This is Demo 024, the current version. Demo 019 is probably from around January, February. This one I was just working on yesterday on the right. So again, left side's the old one, right side's the new one. When I started doing this, the first thing I did was go through my game system, separate these out. Now that didn't take too long. There wasn't much to really concise and clean up here. Same thing for my scenes. There aren't too many scripts here. A couple of room ones, a couple of things for effects, but all of this was pretty separated already. Where I started having issues was up here in things like enemies main, for example. As you can see here, enemies main is quite large. It had a massive amount of scripts here, all in one place. And this was going to be a problem, because this in turn was then referring to a massive amount of things over here. Projectiles main isn't too big, but it was referring to things, each enemy was referring to things there as well with its massive amount of scripts, like the zombie here. I mean, look at this. For those who don't know, I've got a screen that's 4K size. So you are looking at a very large screen here. It makes it look smaller, but I basically shrunk this down so that you guys would just have the scripts and nothing else. If I showed you my whole workspace, this is a tremendous amount of scripts right here. More than needs to be there. And if you look at the skeletons, you'll notice a lot of them seem to be the same thing, like stuff for being knocked back, wall bounce, launch ender. I'll go back one more time so you guys can see it. And you'll see there's just a lot of scripts that are repeating here, and they probably shared 90% of their code. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. And then you take that with the main script, which is all interconnected in each other, and that's just a mess. So I started cleaning things up with enemies main, and as you can see here, now the main script, I've actually got an enemy shared AI folder, and under it you have enums and clumps, which a clump is basically a fancy term for you set up a class, it stores a bunch of variables, maybe it has a small helper method to set up those variables. But the reason this works is you can now transport all those variables in a group together. It doesn't use up a lot of resources, it's quick, efficient, and it's clean when you look in the inspector. I'll show you what I mean actually right now for a moment. Because if we look at this enemy, the bone cannon here, and we go into his enemy's main folder, notice how everything is in collapsible menus. So I can close all of this stuff down, and look how small it is here. If I want to see all his stats, look at what's there under stats, how big that would be otherwise. And then you've also got things like his elemental defense, his status defense, sub drop downs here. Look how big this is. And then you have graphics and animation data, which is pretty small, but I have a lot of stuff hidden away here too, that if I showed you all, it would just, again, the whole screen would be covered. Now look when I close it. There's graphics and anim data. Look at this. Just look how much easier this is to go through and read and change things. And that's a big part of development too, because it makes it less likely that I'll make an error, and it'll take me less time to make changes and find any aforementioned errors, because I'm not scrolling up and down through a mess. Like, for example, on the old project, go look at this. Just look at this. And this is with a lot of stuff hidden away. Just look at this here. And his stuff is all over the place. I can't see any of the stats data like that, because if I showed you... Here, let's go ahead and do that. If I had it exposed, just look at this. There's no collapsible menu here. There is some one for the elemental attack, but look at the rest of this. It's all... I mean, it's just about all of it is just a separate variable. Look what a mess this is. That's the enemy's script. Look at that. Just look at that. That is a nightmare to look through. Versus just, okay... This is just so much cleaner, faster. If I want stats, okay, I know they're here. If not, okay, close it off, out of the way. Now, so far this doesn't seem too dramatic, but we haven't gotten into the player stuff yet, which, yeah, when we get to that, you guys will really see some large changes and be like, oh my god, that's terrible. Right now it's not too dramatic, but just wait, you'll see. Alright, so I'm digressing. I kind of went a bit on there. I apologize. So, separate out the scripts, got clumps. I've got a global script that's now... very short. I'm actually going to go ahead and pull this up so you guys can see how short the globals one is. But this is the script that the majority of other scripts, whether they're room scripts, scoring, stages, even the player, this is the code they access versus that entire gangly mess you saw under enemy's main. Look at this. That's it. 136 lines of code. That's it. That's the global enemies script. That's all there is to it there. It's that short. That's all the code that's externally accessed. As for the main script, it was broken up. You've got a main one here, and look how small this is compared to this over here. Look at that. You've got one for the damage code, which again, look how small that is, how clean and concise this is. It's a small amount of scripts. And now the combo states. Now we've got one for each status effect. Look how neat and organized this is. And guess what? When something goes wrong, I know exactly where it is. But now, what about those enemies I showed you? Because I was harping about, oh man, their scripts are so long. Oh, this is so hard. Give me money, man. I'm working so hard here. Come on, man. Look at me. Look at that. That's about 2/5 the size of this. Because all of this code for the combo states, for the skeleton and the zombie, is now combined and in one place. And I know exactly where it is. If a bug occurs, I know exactly where to go to find it. Here are the scripts for each state, for each combo state. And then here, we have the clump with the data for it. Nice and simple. Look at this. All the variables are right there, along with something to reset them. Look at this here. This is just a check to make sure the animations exist. So if the animations don't exist, guess what? I get an error message. And that's also very helpful if later on, let's say, somebody's editing the game and changes enemy behavior. They know, oh, okay, I have to put in this animation. It's missing. That's why he's not getting knocked up. That's why he's not getting knocked back. The game doesn't crash. It gives you a warning and the game keeps running. I mean, it just makes life so much easier and so much quicker. Anybody who's not a coding person, they're probably looking right now and like, I don't get it. And that's fine. I understand. But anybody who is a coder is just breathing a sigh of relief because they're like, oh my God, thank God he fixed that mess. Their OCD, I'm sure, is going nuts. And it's not just this enemy. I could go through all the other script folders for the enemies, but again, I've already been talking here for about 8 minutes, you know, without pause, and I've already got 2 or 3 minutes worth of clips to come before this, so let's move on. So, why should you give a fuck about any of the information I've covered so far? Simple. In short, what you see here, this concising and combining of code has made it so that the code I have here is going to cover the movement, the collision, things related to status effects, combo states, etc., for roughly 90% of the 150 enemies I have left. That's going to dramatically cut their code down, and it means that I'll be able to develop a lot of things faster to get things out quicker to you guys, so you guys have more to play with sooner, versus waiting a millennia for this thing to be done, which, let's be real, nobody wants to do that. We all want it now, and when I say that, nobody wants it more than me. It also means that while you're playing the game, better end user experience, because it's less likely you encounter bugs, crashes, things that'll just disrupt your experience, which nobody enjoys. And C, well, it also means that I can also produce and develop a lot more. I mean, 150 enemies is a lot to work with. But let's be real, we've also got to worry about their projectiles. We've got to make sure we balance them out. You know, there's got to be things like enemy positioning. And if I'm not focused on worrying about copying and pasting in code and then spending all this time testing each enemy one by one, I can focus more on the end user experience, setting up rooms to be, well, diabolical. Anybody who's played the training hall knows what I mean. If you've played through that bone pillar room, trust me, there's a reason why they're all positioned the way they are. And after you played it once or twice, you quickly realize, okay, this is kind of tricky, depending on whether I come in from the left or the right side, how he set this up. Okay. And even the same thing could be associated to the zombie room. It's not arbitrary where the enemies are all positioned. I promise you a lot of thought went into it. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and briefly show you some player scripts, and then I'm going to jump off here. Because as always, I intended to make this video maybe 5 minutes long, and it's gone way over that. My mouth has run a marathon, so I'll spare you guys the torture of having to listen to my voice for much longer. Here's Richter's scripts. Look how much is here. Just look at this. That's massive. And now look at the new one, significantly shorter. Yes, I know it's still a lot, but again, this is how involved the player classes are. Let's look at Alucard's. See the difference here? Just look at this. It's much shorter. And the reason is because a lot of this code was just repeat code that's now been moved over to the main script. Everything is separated. Now all this code in here All this code you guys are seeing, guess what? This is code that I now don't have to worry about. I don't have to do this for each player class. This stuff is all separated out. So that I don't have to worry about, oh my god, I've got to do this again and do that. No, it's all done here. I don't have to touch it. Less testing, less error prone. And it's also been cut down. It also means less compile time because these have been separated into their own assembly definition files. And it overall just makes bug checking, debugging in general, much quicker and easier. And a lower stress level for me as well, which is a big thing because let's be real, if I get a splitting headache, how efficient am I going to be at coding? Same thing for the controls. The code is much cleaner, much more concise, versus you look at the old one, there's almost nothing under the shared scripts. I mean, that was just idiotic. That means all the code that's not here was under these folders and was being copy and pasted and then having to be tested for each class separately, which is a waste of time. And last but definitely not least, as promised, here's a view of the player hierarchies. On the left, we have a view that's 2.5 screens long and would surely make any developer's eyes bleed. On the right, we have something that's not even a screen long, is much more clean and concise, and just makes it much easier to find and tweak values. Trust me when I say, things like this greatly cut down development time and increase efficiency, which means that you guys will get releases a lot quicker and stuff gets done a lot faster overall. In short, this is going to make it so that if I want to add in more player classes, which I do want to do. I mean, for those who don't know, I at least want to add in Modern Richter, Modern Maria, and then I have enough information to add in 3 more separate classes. But again, that all depends on the donations. If you're not a Patreon supporter, join now. I keep saying it. Join now. Okay, cheap plug is over. Alright, so getting back on subject. It makes life much easier overall. Makes things much faster. The other thing that's more important is as I develop things like, let's say, the bat form, and the wolf form, mist form, this is going to make it much quicker and easier for me because a lot of the code is already done. It also makes it so when I'm putting in sub-weapon, sub-attacks, if something goes wrong, well, okay, it's its own isolated little script. I don't have to worry about the main player engine. I know that all works. Again, what's in it for you? The same thing as with the enemies. Makes development faster, lets me do things more efficiently so that you get things sooner, and then when you do get it, your overall experience is better. Alright, so that's that. I could probably go into more scripts here because I have a lot more stuff that's separated out, but you know what, there's one more thing I want to show you guys if I can get it to pull up. Unity is a bit of a pain with pulling these up, but let's see if I can do it here. Here are the assembly definition files I was talking to you guys about. Look how many of them there are. That'll show you the scope of how much code I had to separate. Now let's go over to the old one, see how many there are there, for reference's sake. By the way, if you guys see my mouse jumping around, I apologize. There's actually something for me recording the video of the controls up in front of me. You guys can't see that though. None, as you can see. Now let's go into here to Visual Studio. Notice this? They're all broken up. It's easy, it's concise, I know where everything is, it's labeled appropriately, and it's a logical order. This makes development so much faster, but, you know, talk is cheap, as they say. It's not only cheap, let me correct that. Talk is not just cheap, but free. So you guys will see in the next couple of months. I'm about to import in Alucard's data for hanging off ledges. Then I want to go back to his weapons, then I'm going to start on his sub-weapons. But, again, I'm digressing. I'm done running my mouth now. I think I've shown you guys enough. You know, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that helped bring to light what I've been doing. And more importantly, for all of my Patreon supporters, I hope that helps to show you guys that I'm doing stuff here. I'm not just sitting on my ass, taking your money, and doing nothing. Because again, I appreciate each and every one of you. I thank you all for the support. You guys have been fantastic. That's it. I've got to go. I've got 1,000,001 things to do so I can get back to coding. As always, leave a like on the video, leave a comment down below, subscribe to it. If you're not a Patreon supporter, join right now. If you want to discuss the project or just Castlevania in general with other like-minded fans, there'll be a link to the Facebook group as well as the forums. The forums are quiet right now because I primarily use that for bug reporting, and I'm going to be using that for conceptual ideas. People have asked me about Discord. Again, that's in the works too, but I do not have the time to focus on a Discord right now with working on this. That's something I'm going to have to do further down the line. All right? So that's that. I hope that everybody's staying safe and healthy out there, and I'll talk to you all soon. Deuces.